Hi, I'm Kylan Savage. I do A-level biology, and in this exciting video we're going to be looking at succession, and this is under the module of ecosystems and sustainability. Now, to start off with, what is succession? Well, succession is a directional change in a community of organisms over time. Now, any change in a community of organisms can cause a change in the habitat, and any change in the habitat can also cause a change in the makeup of the community. And these ideas can help explain why gradual directional change happens in a community over such time, and therefore such a process of directional change is called succession. But how does it happen? Well, if we're going to look at an example, the island of Surtsey in Iceland was created by a volcanic eruption in the 1960s, but is now home to a community of plants. Development of such community from bare ground is known as primary succession, and this happens in a certain way. It starts off with a pioneer community, and this is where algae and lichens begin to live on the bare rock. Next, erosion of the rock and a build-up of dead and rotting organisms produces enough soil for larger plants like mosses and ferns to grow. These replace, or succeed, which is the correct term to use, the algae and lichens. In a similar way, larger plants succeed these small plants until a final stable community is reached, and this is called a climax community, think of it as the final community. In the UK, climax communities are often woodland communities. Succession, however, doesn't always start from bare ground. Secondary succession takes place on a previously colonised but disturbed or damaged habitat. Now, we went on a trip, a biology trip a while ago to some sand dunes, and so then we were looking at how habitats have changed, and it can be difficult to understand how a habitat has changed and how it's going to change. But sand dunes are interesting because they display all the stages of succession in the same place at the same time. If you look at beach and sand dunes, because the sea deposits sand onto the beach, the sand nearest the sea is deposited more recently than the sand left further away. Obviously, because if you think about it, the sand left further away was obviously deposited by the sea quite a while ago. This means that the sand just above the high water mark is at the start of the process of succession, whereas the sand much further away hosts its climax community already. And by walking up the beach and through the dunes, it's possible to see each stage of succession as it happens. Which is quite interesting. You start off with, at the beginning of the beach, you may have some sea rocket, then you go up the beach, some prickly sandwort, some sea couch grass, and then when you get to the very end, the old dunes, you get looking things like vipers, burgloss, and sand fescue. Obviously, you don't actually have to know all these specific names. It's just a nice example. Pioneer plants like sea rocket and prickly sandwort colonise the sand just above the high water mark. These can tolerate saltwater spray, lack of fresh water, and unstable sand. Wind-blown sand builds up around the base of these plants, and this forms a mini sand dune. So if you've got your little plant here, then the sand builds up around this. So you've got one big sand dune, a little plant on top, and then little sand dunes on top. As the plants die and decay, the nutrients accumulate in the mini dune, and as it gets bigger, plants like sea sandwort colonise it. Because sea couch grass has underground stems, it helps stabilise the sand, whereas pioneer plants like sea rocket can't do that. Now, with more stability and accumulation of more nutrients, plants like sea spurge and marram grass start to grow. You probably have heard of marram grass because it's special. It shoots up trap wind-blown sand, and as the sand accumulates, the shoots grow taller to stay above the growing dune, so it keeps getting higher and higher. This traps more sand. As the sand dune and nutrients build up, other plants colonise the sand. Many, like the hare's foot clover, the bird's foot trefoil, are members of the bean family. And bacteria in their root nodules convert nitrogen into nitrates. With nitrates available, more species like sand fescue and viper's bugloss colonise the dunes, and this stabilises them further. I really like that example for succession because I think it's really good. It's a great way to look at them all. If you've got some questions about it, explain the meanings of primary succession, pioneer community, and climax community. You can compare and contrast the process of succession on bare rock and on a sand dune and the differences. And finally, you could explain why all stages of succession are visible in a sand dune, and you could kind of talk a little bit about what those stages are. Well, thank you very much for watching this video. I hope you do good in your biology A-level. Bye!